and you know, who was anonymous all those years, but she talks about the way that afterwards the whole medical legal procedure was like a whole other round of being degraded, discredited, devalued, treated as not a competent witness to her own life. So I really wanted to talk about those questions about voice and talk about becoming a writer while having all those extremely ordinary experiences young women do. You know, this very specific quest to have a particular kind of voice that means writing books, as well as having the ordinary voice people have in conversation to say, no, that didn't happen. You're not going to gaslight me on that. So, and to struggle for other people, you know, to become a voice in defense of other people's voices. Right. So, you know, I haven't had to, this is literally the first time I've talked in anything vaguely resembling public about it. So you can see I'm still figuring out how to talk about it.
It's lovely, as you were saying, you've done so many of these smaller essay books. I'm excited to read something of yours that is more autobiographical. What I do love, though, about your essays is that they are often so generously personal, as well as commentaries on all sorts of different issues. Just to continue with what you were saying, though, I'm curious about what happens when we put the word sexual in front of violence or in front of harassment, because it somehow seems to make it more debatable or less serious. I've been watching all sorts of men respond to accusations of sexual violence and sexual harassment by saying, oh, well, that never would have happened because I didn't fancy her. Or there's something about actually removing those words, and it's just sexual violence is just violence, and sexual harassment is
complicated, though, because often something consensual becomes non-consensual, something non-violent becomes violent.
I want to, just before we, you know, I don't know how much time we've got, I want to make sure that I fit this in, but as someone who's played a princess in a fairy tale, I loved that you rewrote Cinderella. You call it Cinderella Liberator, which is such an amazing title. I read in the afterword about the personal history of your grandmothers. And were they inspiration for this?
Not directly. The actual inspiration for it is not 2 generations back, but 2 generations forward. I am the great aunt of the most magnificently feisty young person named Ella. But it really began with, you know, I found a Cinderella illustration that I thought was wonderful, and I turned it over, and it had this very short text on it from one telling of the fairy tale where the fairy godmother says, what shall we do for a coachman? And Cinderella says, I will get the rat trap. And it's so great because it was, you know, an epiphany. I thought, first of all, Cinderella is an active collaborator in all this transformation. She's not just the lucky one the fairy godmother came down and, you know, did everything for. You know, secondly, and then I thought, because we're always told, I think the most conventional version of Cinderella is it's about getting your prince. And just those 2 or 3 sentences, I thought, no, this is a story about becoming, about transformation. And the fairy godmother is an agent of transformation, but so is Cinderella. And then I was like, well, how is this, you know, if you foreground that, all these things becoming other things, what happens if you make it? And you know, I'm not a huge princess fan. I'm not sure how you feel about princesses, having played one or 2. Yeah. Although you play them very nicely.
Thank you.
I actually took a great niece to that movie, and
thank you.
And
thank you.
You know, but so I really was like, what's Cinderella for our time? And it's like, what does it look like? And what is a point of transformation? It's liberation. What does liberation look like for this girl who's unvalued and exploited and overworked? And it was also very fun to realize that the name Cinderella contains the name Ella, you know, Cinderella. So I've written a book for Ella. Her younger sister is getting the next one, which is going to be a Sleeping Beauty rewrite.
Oh, amazing. So, I was going to ask if you're planning to do more. Because
also Arthur Rackham did fantastic silhouette images for those too.
Yeah.
And I have to, can I just hold it up?
Yes.
I love it so much. Will I burn my sleeve off with these genuine candles? And one of the things I love these silhouette illustrations so much because it felt like they're sort of less racially determined, that, you know, a kid from Iran or Brazil could look at these and they could feel like this could be me, this could be my story too. And they're also just incredibly beautiful. So,
yes,
and out of
they are.
copyright, because they turned
gorgeous.
100 this year. So
I love that her happy ending is that she becomes the truest version of herself. That feels.
Isn't that everyone's happy ending?
It's often not the ending that's told, but yes.
Yes. I'm curious to ask the truest version of yourself, but that's going too far. Should I just ask?
The truest version of myself? Gosh, I mean...
Well, to be continued in later years over other beverages.
Yes, to be continued.
Yes.
To be continued.
I did want to ask you about Little Women. You have a movie coming out, do you not?
I do have a movie coming out, and it is...
Because it's a bit like Cinderella Liberator in that it's a feminist retelling of a classic.
Yes, it is. Louisa May Alcott, what I love about Greta's retelling of this story is that she addresses what is often very controversial about Little Women, which is that a lot of readers, a lot of big fans of Louisa feel that she was forced by her publisher to write an ending that was not the ending for the story that she actually really wanted for it. And Greta's handling of that, whereby, I don't want to ruin it, but Greta's handling of that and the way that she uses her script to play out almost 3 different endings for the story so that the audience gets to see what it would look like in multiple different versions, and you don't really know which one is the version that she chooses for this story. I remember finishing the script and just putting it down and going, that's genius. It's so clever what she does. And so I'm very proud to be part of a retelling of the story that I hope, if Louisa can hear us, is an honouring of maybe part of it that she maybe didn't get to say or didn't get to tell. So yeah, it's beautiful, and yeah, thank you for asking me about it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer and I'm trying to figure out which girls, there's a lot of girls from 2 to 17 or 18 in my life, which ones I'm going to round up to go see it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I love the trailer. I mean, very similar to really what you addressed in Cinderella Liberator is all the publisher seems to care about is, well, which of the guys does she choose? You know, that's really the ultimate thing that we want to know, is which man does she end up with? And Saoirse's response to that in the trailer is Joe is so brilliant, which is just kind of this, oh my goodness, how am I going to stomach the patience for dealing with dealing with all of this? I didn't realize how long I felt like I'd been waiting in a story, or in this specific story, to hear the stepsisters apologize and reconcile with Cinderella.
It's secretly kind of a Buddhist Cinderella too.
I was wondering about that. I was reading it and I was like, I smell it. I
also felt like the stepsisters, I hate when the sisters are portrayed as funny looking, as though like we don't only have to like pretty people, and good people are pretty and pretty people are good, and everyone else can go to hell. And so we changed it. Yeah, but I also was like, you know, and it was really interesting. It's kind of a problem. Like, how do you take this setup, and it sounds a little bit like Greta's done with Little Women, how do you take this setup and take it someplace else than the usual, you know, the you know, Cinderella gets her man, everyone else gets punished, etc. Yeah. You know, and clearly the stepmother is a Buddhist hungry ghost. And, you know, but I also identified her as like the voice we all hear in our own heads, that I can't give you anything because I need more. It's mine. This is all about me. Yeah. And, you know, whereas the stepsisters, you know, go off and do their glamour glitter thing. So, yeah.
There's one thing I also, just while waiting, that I wanted to share that Rebecca bought for me as a gift that I was so moved by, which is that she's been working on, oh, I'm losing my mic. She's been working on a map, a tube map of New York, but all of the names on it are named after famous women instead of famous men. And it's profound. The minute I looked at it, I immediately teared up. And you told me these...
why? Because that's such a...
Do I know why I teared up? Because it's not something that I get to encounter in our culture, in our society. I don't get to see women being celebrated in the same way. That
well, you called it a tube map because you were a Londoner before
I
you were
know,
in New York.
so it's a subway
but
map.
we should do London.
Oh, please, can we do London? Amazing! Wow, that just happened.
I have a cartographer and a designer. We just have to come up with the names of how many tube stops are there on the Underground? About
there
at least that many, probably.
Well, you know what? Maybe not.
Which tube stop do you see yourself as, Emma?
Oh my goodness! Wow, I grew up in Islington, so
where?
Islington.
Oh, so there you go.
Yeah, that would be very meaningful to me. But you cited these two beautiful quotes that two other women who had similar reactions to the reaction that I had when I looked at this map said. Can you please repeat them, because I was so...
Yeah, the City of Women map was part of my 2016 New York City Atlas, but it's kind of a breakout map. It's like the singer that's gone solo. We're distributing it separately because it just has resonated with people, and it was so exciting for me to do. One of the things that's shocking is I have lived my whole life in a manscape. I grew up in a town named after a man, in a county named after a man, on a continent named after a man, and almost all places are named after men, whether it's mountains, rivers, buildings, bridges, cities, states. We have some exceptions. We have a couple English queens in Maryland and Virginia and a few other things, but it's really a male world. And I think that tells little boys you can grow, it's like the fact that most monuments in New York City, until very recently, had only 5 statues of historic women, and hundreds upon hundreds of men. And so there's nothing for girls that said, you can be, a general, a hero, et cetera. And it really, I think it's one of the infinite things that aggrandized men and withered away the space for women to be. But so I taught at Columbia when this map was coming out, and I did a field trip with some students around New York. I showed them the map, and I said, how would your life be different if you, and these were mostly not white people either, how would your life be different if you lived in a city named after people like you, where everything was named after people like you? And these 2 young women said the most amazing things to me. One of them said, I have slumped over all my life. I would stand up straight in a city named after people like me. And the other one just said, would a man dare sexually harass me on a street named after a great woman? And it was really, they were so smart and so right, and just the subtlety of how this changes our conduct to be in spaces that aggrandize us or not. And Harlem named a bunch of streets after black people, but they're all male. The great Harriet Tubman statue at the north end of Central Park, but we still live in a manscape, and it was really changing. That was so exhilarating for me. We did a new version that's got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and some other people added, and I don't see why we shouldn't do a London one. I think it would be really fun.
I love that.
Okay. If you're ready to become a printer and distributor, we're ready to go to.
For sure, I will figure it out, undoubtedly.
Yes. See, this is known as the famous conversation in which I cornered Emma and made her commit to print projects.
A London tube map.
Or this will be the fairy tale in which I turned her into a tube stop.
I feel very...
I'm not a tube stop, I'm a human being.
I feel very uncoerced. Very uncoerced. Thank you so much for all of your work. Thank you. I say this at the end of the letter that I write for my book club, but we all have all different sorts of mothers, and you have intellectually, politically, spiritually, in all sorts of ways, and my understanding have been a mother to me. So I'm very, very grateful to you, and thank you.
I think of myself more often as an aunt, but that is the loveliest thing anybody said it. Well,
good.
That sort of non-linear nurture of it. But thank you so much. Wow.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I would be
and
proud
thank you to
to
everyone
be
who came.
Another mother.
Oh.
I'm sure you have. I know you have an actual one and many others.
Yes, I do. I have many. I have many, and a wonderful mother. I'm very lucky. Very lucky.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you for coming.